welcome. Welcome to our second episode of the American Entrepreneur Podcast. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Carl Bishop, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Victor Maas. Y'all know me. I'm a local real estate broker in the San Antonio market. My colleague and friend Victor here is also a real estate broker, but he also happens to be a real estate attorney. And primarily an investor. He runs an incredible organization called SARIA, which is the San Antonio Real Estate Investment Association. They have classes every 2 weeks. They teach people how to invest. And he's a great friend. So, Victor, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? I did a pretty good job, right?
You did great. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate this. This is really nice of you. I like this setup here. You've got some really nice setup going on here. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little shout out to Saulo, who's a dear friend as well, who's putting this thing on for us. We're riding in his ship today, and I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with what he's done. And so yeah, thanks for joining us today. If you're there on, we're running it live today. We're kind of experimenting with that. So if you do have questions or if you do want to interact, you can type in questions, and we're kind of keep an eye on that. Saulo's kind of watching the live feed there. A couple big things we want to talk about today. Our big, item of interest is the National Association of Realtors lawsuit and settlement that came out a few days ago. I can't tell you how many people have called me and have been like, what are we going to do? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. And there's a lot of, frustrations with the National Association of Realtors. And it's gotten pretty ugly in some cases. So we're going to address some of that. We're going to talk through some of that, and I think at the end of this discussion, you'll have some answers. We're also going to get into Victor's business a little bit. As you guys know, this is the American Entrepreneur Podcast, so our goal is to interview and talk to business owners and talk about their entrepreneurial journey. How did they succeed? How did they get through a lot of their, challenges and failures and frustrations? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that with Victor, because Victor's been in business for how long now?
This is my 24th year.
24th year in business. Now, is that SARIA itself, or is that...
SARIA, I just celebrated 10 years with SARIA this month.
That's right. We sang you happy birthday. I remember that.
Something like that. But I've been a lawyer since the beginning of 2000, and I've been a realtor actually longer than anything. I got my license as a real estate agent back in 2000 when I was done with law school.
That's right. That's right. And we've known each other, 15 years now, something like that? Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So 10 years as owner of SARIA, 24 years as a real estate attorney.
Agent.
And agent.
Yeah, I've been about a lawyer going on 23 years now. 23
years as an attorney. Wow. And so... of all those three professions, I mean, SARIA is kind of like your preferred. The investor side of the business is what you prefer. Is that a fair statement?
So I like to jokingly say that I'm a real estate investor, real estate trainer, and then lawyer last. But the truth is they're intertwined. Right. A lot of what we do as real estate investors is we solve problems. Yeah. And so I put my lawyer hat on. Yeah. And to go find deals, I got to put my my investor hat on. Right. And then to teach real estate investing to hundreds and hundreds of people, I got to put on a different hat. Yeah. But they're all intertwined. We just had our lunch and learn earlier today. Yeah. We had 100 people there. I had a special guest talking about probate and the probate process affecting realtors, investors, just average consumers. And it's a South Texas tradition to die without a will. So my first message to you today is, if you don't have a will, please get one, or at the very least get a TOD, a transfer on death deed. Yeah. Our office phone number is 468-1831, 210-468-1831. Please get a will for your family before it's too late. Otherwise, you're going to cost your family a lot of pain and suffering down the road. So there you go.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And I think almost all of us have some kind of experience, and usually a negative one, with a family member or friend that's died without a will. So that's a great piece of advice. And that kind of is a good little segue into the legal, topic that we have, which is the National Association of Realtors. I mean, this news broke months ago, but the settlement is finally complete, and it looks like that we're paying out. The National Association of Realtors is paying out, hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's some new rules that have come into play, and these new rules are freaking some people out. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I want to say this about fear. And, fear-based thinking is, I like to consider fear false evidence appearing real, which is, it's typically just the notion of something that people get super worked up about it and they start freaking out. And I can't tell you how many people have called me over the past 24, 48 hours, just frantic, thinking like, oh my gosh, do I need to get another job? Do I need what should I do? And it's just like, I hear a lot of fear. And as I've dug deeper into it, and oh my gosh, I've had some incredible discussions with some of the top agents and brokers from around the country. Kyle Whistle, Dan Beer, and Kevin Kaufman did a phenomenal mastermind with the EXP organization. Look them up on their Facebook page and watch that mastermind. You'll be very, very encouraged with what you see. Also, Greg Harrelson did a great little post on his as well. Christian Bradley have been doing some really cool stuff and sharing some cool information as well. So, arm yourself, fight fear with facts. How do you fight fear? With facts. And get those facts from the best of the best. Don't just sit there and listen to unproductive people freak out. Find out what the top producers and find out what the most productive people are saying. And you're going to get encouraged, because after masterminding with a lot of my colleagues, and first of all, when I hear news like this, I don't typically react as most people do anyway. And I love that we have an attorney on to get some of your legal expertise. But when I hear stuff like that, I kind of always think, this is going to affect a lot of people a certain way, but a smaller percentage this is gonna affect very positively. And I consider myself to be a part of that smaller percentage. And so if you're listening to this, check out those resources and take a look, and I think you'll be encouraged. But let's talk a little bit about what it is and what are the biggest changes. So from my research and from our discussions, on a national scale, the biggest change is that you can no longer advertise a buyer side commission on the MLS. Okay, so we can no longer put 3% buyer's commission on there. Come either June or July later this year, that's going to have to be removed from all MLS platforms. The second biggest requirement is that in order to pay a commission, the buyer is now going to need to have a buyer's rep agreement signed. And so if you're an MLS participant and you need to have a buyer's rep agreement signed. Now, I know you and I have been doing this a long time, Victor. Many times, and there's a lot of agents I know, they just never get those things signed. It's kind of like, I don't like using them. I don't like, and I know we always coach and teach our agents to sit down and to have a discussion and get that paperwork signed. But I want to get your thoughts on those two big changes, Victor. What do you think about that? Do you think that's something that people should be concerned about? And, what are some best steps for people to take with those two?
I was thinking about this since we last spoke about this topic.
Yeah.
And it really took me back to 2005. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but it used to be very common rent to own in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And for many, many years, people would acquire a property as a buyer, but they never owned it.
Right.
Only after they paid off the mortgage or the rent or whatever you want to call it,
right,
did the seller finally produce a deed.
That was a contract for deed, wasn't it?
Right, exactly.
Contract for deed, yeah.
And so basically after September 1st, 2005, those essentially went away.
It went away.
And everybody was panicking.
Was it a law that came out, wasn't it?
It was.
It was. Part of the SAFE Act or something like that?
It was meant to help a lot of folks, especially those that did not speak English,
right,
protect them, because so many, let's just say bad parties were taking advantage of the situation. You've been living there for 10 years and all of a sudden you miss one payment, they evict you.
Right.
You have no property rights of any kind. Nothing's ever recorded.
Right.
So the reason it brought that in my mind about what's going on now is it forces agents to be more professional. Right. They claim they are, a lot of them, but you and I know that, 20, 30% of the agents are really professional. So many of them are not. They don't do the buyer representation agreement. Well, now it forces you to really have a adult conversation with your clients.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a good thing for the industry, for those that are really treating this as a professional endeavor. And truth be told, as much money as a potential transaction occurs now, let's just say 9-10 grand on just the buyer side for that agent or brokerage, you really should have everything in writing. And if your buyer is not willing to get pre-approved or sign a buyer representation agreement, one where it acknowledges that if the seller or the seller's listing agent won't partake in the commission, that they're now responsible for that, then move on. Oh, but I don't want to upset the buyer. You'd rather upset them now than later on. Just be a big boy and or big girl, whatever, and just have a nice adult conversation. I hate to use I hate to use that word. You have to have an adult conversation with adults.
Well, you need to.
You do. And right, what a concept. And even like right now, and I'm switching topics, but it's on point to the NAR thing.
Sure.
Being an adult, when you move in with somebody and you're not going to get married, have a cohabitation agreement.
Oh, wow.
Explaining everything before you move in.
That would be challenging for certain people.
It would, because I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want her or him to leave me. Oh.
Is that like a prenup? But like,
it's like a prenup for boyfriend and girlfriends. Hey, we're not getting married. This is my home.
Yeah.
This is your responsibility. Should it not work out, then guess what? I'll give you 2 weeks to find a place to live.
To opt out.
To opt out, yes. Now, if we want to get married, as an example, we will take legal action to get married. Same with the prenup.
Right.
People are afraid to have that conversation. Same with the NAR thing. A lot of buyers agents are afraid to talk to adults because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to, potentially lose a commission. Well, I think this is an opportunity, what NAR has done and everything, to be an adult and to have these conversations with your buyer clients.
Yeah.
And if they're not receptive, they just saved you a world of hurt.
Sure.
So I also think that every buyer's agent should reach out to the listing agent.
Sure.
Emails, texts, calls. If that listing agent isn't responsive, then don't show their property.
Yep.
That's it. Keep it simple.
I love that.
Sorry if I'm very direct about it, but I'm passionate about what we do for a living.
That's good. So here, and that's the thing. It's going to cause, which is a good thing, more communication. Because what's been happening in our industry, which is kind of ugly, but over the past like 4 years or so, we've kind of turned the industry and, some of the bigger players in the industry, the iBuyers, the Open Doors and the Zillows, they've tried to turn the real estate professional into nothing more than a glorified door opener. Whoever can open the door the fastest, you don't need a realtor anymore. All you need is an app. You don't need the realtor to do any research. You can do everything you need online through our app. And so if all we are is glorified door openers, then maybe we should be replaced by an app, and that's my thing. Like, I think what this is doing is going to be it's going to be a huge blessing in disguise, because what is going to happen is it's going to have people starting to communicate more, like you're saying. Like, you're going to need to have a conversation. When we coach our agents at AE Realty, we always instruct them, before you go driving all over town, contact the listing agent ahead of time and have a conversation with them. Do you have any offers on the property? Are there any things I should be concerned about? Are there any, things that the seller wants us to know prior to going over there? Are there any things that you're concerned about? What's most important to your client? These are basic questions. Now, a lot of people say, well, the listing agent doesn't answer their phone, or the listing agent doesn't call me back or text me back or email me back. And what should I do in that particular case?
Don't show the property.
There you go. Don't show the property. And so what I think is going to happen is you're going to see a separation between agents that communicate well and ones that don't. And the ones that don't are not going to be making much money at all. And they're probably going to be finding themselves outside of the business at some point.
Absolutely.
Because they just simply don't communicate well, or they don't put things in place to communicate well. One thing I was thinking of is, if you're a listing agent that's got a lot of listings and you don't have time to answer your phone that often, and you don't have the resources to hire an assistant or administrator or a team that answers your phone for you, maybe making it a part of your voice message, saying, if somebody gets your voicemail, hey, this is Carl Bishop with AE Realty. If you're an agent that's looking to show one of my properties, I just want to let you know that we are giving a 3% commission on all listings I currently have out there, or
That's
a
really good solution.
2.5, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Right? Because then I would be like, oh, All right. Well, here's a person that at least has made that a part of his voice message. Isn't that something that you could do short term to at least help people understand that, hey, my clients still understand the value of buyer's agents. My clients still want to make that a part of their marketing process. And so there's no legal problem with that, I wouldn't think.
I would not think, but there's no precedence yet.
Okay.
I have one that I just came up with right now.
Yeah.
So obviously they're demanding of all, board of realtors throughout the country to take that 3% buyer portion out. Yes?
Right. Correct.
Why not just put it in the agent notes?
That's a good point. Well, I think that probably would be outlawed as
individually.
Right.
It hasn't been outlawed as far as I'm concerned until it's outlawed.
Right.
Why not just put it in the agent notes?
Right.
That's it.
Why not? And that's the thing, too. I think there's still a lot of unknowns, right? Because it kind of, once you start going down this path of a new way of doing business, there'll be other smaller things like, hey, you can't do that either, or can you? You know what I mean? And then the whole voice message thing. It's one of those things to where there's still a lot of unknowns about it. But I think for the most part, this is one thing that we all can agree upon, is it's a better thing to have a consultation first with a client. I'll bring something up. Kalei, who wasn't feeling well today, she's our co-host normally for the show. She had a client come in. This was almost like 3 or 4 months ago. One of the first clients. She picked up the phone. The client found us online and wanted to look at a property. And she comes in, she says, hey, they want to go look at a home. I said, okay, great. Bring them in for a consultation. Because we're always a consultation first company. This is why that's important, is because you don't want the client driving all over town unnecessarily. Many of the homes that they want to look at, they may have other offers. They may not be a good fit financially. They may not fit within their loan program guidelines, whatever the case may be. So you can save the client hours and hours of time and frustration by simply saying, hey, let's have a 15 to 20 to 30 minute consultation so I can save you that time before you go driving around all over town, because I value your time tremendously. Now, so we got this client on the phone, happened to be, a husband and wife, and they were like, no, we don't want to come in. We don't want to talk. We just want you to come and show us the house. Can you do that or not?
No.
And so Kalei really wanted to do it. And I said, okay, so let's do it, because here's the thing. You can go and open that door and take that risk of not getting paid, but you also have an opportunity to earn that person's trust. And the goal of taking that risk and making that investment of time is to say, hey, I really appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to come and open this door for you, but I'd love to save you some time. Why don't we take the next opportunity to meet and visit so I can get a better idea of what you're looking for, so I can save you some time. Now, if you're unsuccessful in establishing that trust within that first meeting, maybe you want to decide whether or not you want to go out there again. Well, let me fast forward for you. So she opened that door. And what happens is, once you make that action and they know that you're going to come and open a door whenever they want, something happens in their mind to where now that they know that you're kind of at their beckoning call, where they take advantage, like, oh, we didn't like the house. And then, oh yeah, well, we don't want to talk about anything else. We just want to move on. Okay. Let me do, no, we don't want to do anything else. Okay, great. Well, I'll call you if I see something else that I want to see. Bye. And it's kind of like, wow, well, we never really got a chance to create a relation. And we talk about this all the time. There's 2 ways that you can do business, transactionally or relationally. And we want to teach you how to do business relationally. But when you start the relationship off with a transactional and you give them that opportunity, and we talked about one of our core values earlier today, which is you don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you negotiate for, which is a wonderful quote from Dr. Carras from the Carras Negotiation Institute. And it became one of my core values after I heard him say it. It's a negotiation. And if you go out there and show that house because a person just wanted to see it right at that moment, then you're kind of already losing that negotiation, unfortunately. And some people will continue to take advantage of you.
I could not agree with you more. If you cannot sit down and have some sort of consultation with them, and they need the answers now, they're not good clients. I recently had a client the other day, and I sat down with him for almost an hour, answered all his questions about a lease agreement. Mm-hmm. And I even provided him a blank lease, and everything's good. And he was so grateful and everything. But I was able to explain everything to him. I think one of the powers that a good realtor brings to the table is they're going to save their client a lot of time. A lot of time is where it's at. Hey, don't show me 20 properties, show me 5. Hey, I don't want you to show me properties I really would never qualify for in any sense. So please, can you get me a good loan officer who can get me pre-approved? Hey, you know what? There's this multiple interest in this property. Let's admit this kind of contract offer so that way we get this deal. And those come with experience.
Right.
And if you have clients, potential clients that are not on board for a relationship that's built on trust and time and respect for each other, I'm going to advise you, move on. There's a lot of bad apples out there.
There really are.
And if you start out with jumping every time somebody says jump, you've already lost. There are time wasters out there, a lot of them, and time is the most valuable commodity you have. Don't waste it with people that don't respect it.
That's so good. And I think this is a huge win for the realtor community that understands that, because what the iBuyer companies have tried to do is try to turn us into glorified door openers, to where, we're at the beck and call and all we're really good for is opening up a door. And I think that kind of, opened the door, if you will, to this lawsuit, which is, if all we're doing is glorified door openers, do we deserve 3%? Do we deserve any commission at all? Should that be a separate expense? And that's the problem is, and I talked to some great colleagues and dear friends of mine that have actually built their business model on being incredibly quick and efficient to just go open doors. Like they literally have licensed agents where they're called like showing assistants, or they're called showing agents, and they don't give advice. They don't write offers. They don't instruct people and advocate for people. All they do is run and open a door. And if they're the first one to get there, the first one to answer their phone, and they've mastered that part of the process so they can be the first to get to it, many times they get the deal. Because a lot of the consumers they want that, we're in that, instant gratification culture, and that's my challenge is, and I tell people this all the time. The average person buys 3 to 5 houses in their lifetime. The average person. Now, if you're doing something only 3 to 5 times in your entire lifetime, that's about once every, 7 to 10 years. If you're only doing something once every 7 to 10 years, there's a good chance that you're going to need some guidance on that, right? Now, we're not talking about your savvy investors. We're not talking about certain people that are, buying, every other year or every year. Maybe those people are a little different, and maybe we have to categorize now. Maybe this is going to open the door for some categories of representation. Okay, so certain people are going to need more guidance and more expertise and more help. Others are not going to need that same help. So maybe, the iBuyer option makes a lot of sense for investors or people that, that are moving a lot faster, right? I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think that we could see maybe some different, and that's one things we were talking about in the mastermind, is there's going to be different levels of representation now, and there are going to be different commissions paid out based on that.
Listen, it's all a numbers game to me. It's all a numbers game to me. So we look at all the folks who normally buy houses 3 to 5 times in their lifetime. Yeah. They need some good hand holding.
Really do.
And they represent what, 80, 90% of the buying population. So
really
don't worry about that 10%. Worry about the 90%. And they need you to be a professional. They need you to counsel them. They need you to be patient, build trust with them. And I don't worry about the 10%. I worry about the majority of folks. Same with real estate investing. I don't buy in the high end. I don't buy in the low end. I buy right or below the median price. And that's it, because that's what buyers want. It's simple supply and demand. If you want to be in this business like I have for over 2 decades, just be consistent in what people want, not what you want. I want to do $1 million houses. Good for you, but how many of those are in the San Antonio area? Not many.
Right. And your buyer pool is very low. Low for that.
Right.
I think one of the big concerns that a lot of my colleagues have is they see the headlines. 6%'s gone away. Realtors aren't going to get paid their commissions anymore. The courts are slashing realtor commissions. It's just, you look at the headlines on the national news and it's kind of scary. Like, of course, that's their job, is to sell fear and to sell attention. But, I think a lot of people are buying into that, and they're saying, look, it's already tough enough being a real estate agent and having to put up with these high interest rates, and my listings are sitting there. Now you're gonna cut my commission as well. Like, can I even do this? And it's a lot of fear-based reactions. And then a lot of people are getting angry. They're getting angry at the National Association of Realtors for dropping the ball. Like, what do you think of that? Do you think that any of that is founded? Do you think there's any validity to the fear and validity to the National Association of Realtors doing a poor job?
It's no different than those who want to get into real estate investing. Whether it's good or bad times, there's no deals out there. You're right. If that's what you believe, you're right. I don't think NAR could have avoided this. There's a lot of anti-monopoly, situations going on. You got all these buyers and other organizations that want access to the MLS.
Yeah.
It's a monopoly. It's a nationwide monopoly.
Yeah.
And inevitably something was going to happen. Everybody gets hit. If you have money, and NAR does, you're going to get hit.
You're going to get hit.
Yeah. If you're not being sued, the joke is you're not really being successful. Now, the
That's
average
great from an attorney. That
yes, yeah. But most people, I'm sorry, it's not going to affect you one bit.
It's true, though.
It's not. So why live in fear? Take care of your business. Be a consultant, as you should be. Be responsible. Be respectful. And disclose. And if your buyer is not open to that, move on. There's a lot of good clients out there that could really use a professional, responsible adult to help them buy their next property.
Sure. And, I think the criticism of the National Association of Realtors, everybody needs accountability. Accountability is not a bad thing. Accountability is a good thing. And as you look back on this thing, where there's some things that NAR could have done better. One of them says, well, the attorneys they hired, how do you take the cooperation rule, which is what was essentially, done away with, that's been around for like 100 years, this cooperation rule, which is it kind of makes the United States different from a lot of other countries. If you go to other countries and try to buy real estate, a lot of them don't have licensing. They don't really have agency law. It's kind of anybody and everybody can be a realtor. It's just kind of like the wild, wild west when it comes to real estate transactions in almost every country outside the United States. And the United States has done really well in protecting agency. And one of the things that has protected agency is the cooperation rule. And so that was essentially destroyed. And so a lot of people say, did we hire the wrong attorneys? Are these guys getting what we paid for? And are our fees going to go up now when they drop the ball? And so, attorneys are people too, right? You're a real person.
Allegedly.
Right?
Allegedly. Yeah. Yeah. So listen, it's important y'all understand this. You don't have all the answers yet. None of us do. Things are going to work out themselves in the next coming months. So for the time being, keep being you. Keep working your butt off. Keep trying to help your clients. Put everything in writing. Disclose. And in times, there will be changes. Nothing's ever that stagnant. Your job is to adapt. Your job will be to adapt. That's just it. A lot of lawyers, when we did tort reform in the 1990s, a lot of lawyers freaked out. Well, guess what? They're still doing a version of personal injury, or they've got into family law, criminal law. You can adapt. There's so many areas of real estate. You just don't have to do the buyer side. You might just do the listing side. You might want to get into, like we were talking, commercial real estate, your thing. And so there you go.
That's a great point. And we do a lot of commercial real estate at our company, AE Realty. And that's the thing about commercial is, in commercial, I would say the majority of the listings don't have a price disclosed or a commission disclosed. And so you kind of have to start that negotiation anyway. And commercial realtors are some of the worst at picking up their phone and getting back to people. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times we've tried to get a hold of people and you get nothing. It's almost like, we'll keep calling. It's almost like a prospecting element to just getting a hold of the commercial listing broker or listing agent. But you still figure out a way to get it done, And I think that practice of, like finding a way to get in touch with people, showing up, texting assistants or affiliates. You do what you have to do to have success in this business. And we're going to talk a little bit too about, your business and how you got to it. But I just want to encourage people before we switch topics here that, this is a great opportunity for you. This is an opportunity for you to separate yourself from the average You separate, your experience and your intentionality from the majority of agents and teams and brokers that are taking this news in a negative fashion, that are being fearful, that are kind of freezing from it. Continue to, like you said, work your butt off. Continue to add value to your clients. Continue to educate your clients. Continue to say, you know what, I want to take this opportunity to sit down and present this buyer representation agreement to you to protect you and to protect myself. Yeah. I don't want you guys to have to overpay for anything. I don't want you guys to have to lose money on anything. I'm your advocate, and I want to remain that, and I'm going to do whatever I have to, and that is all solved by communicating more. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this NAR lawsuit and settlement is this can be a tremendous blessing for you if you take the steps that Victor and I have shared of actually saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to communicate more. I'm going to take an opportunity to communicate with the listing agent. I'm going to build relationships. I'm not going to be just a glorified door opener that runs every time my phone beeps and opens the door. If that's the way your business model is currently set up, maybe it's time to consider some changes. Maybe it's time to say, hey, you know what? Technology has helped so I can add value to my clients in a faster and more efficient fashion. But let me not remove the human element of me needing to build a relationship and truly add value to that individual, through communicating, And I think that's the big part. And as more developments come about and as we start to see what happens with some of the actual, guidelines, we're going to be fairly involved with the San Antonio Board of Realtors. I'm speaking at the GRI Society on Thursday. I said, you come into that.
Yep.
If you would like to hear more in an in-person setting, we'll be at the San Antonio Board of Realtors on Thursday. It's a lunch meeting from 11 to 1, I believe. I'll be speaking with 2 other highly productive professionals, and we'll be talking about this and about other things. And the GRI Society is a wonderful institute. It's the Graduate Realtor Institute, and it's one of the designations that I recommend everybody get, because you'll notice that GRI realtors are more professional. Their listings are filled out more efficiently. They have better, contracts and disclosures. They're always a lot more professional in their approach. And that's why I have a lot of respect for the GRI Society, and our dear friend Tanya is a big part of that. And so we'll be there this Thursday at the San Antonio board. We'll probably try to do a little live feed there through somebody's phone if you want to try to jump on through social media. But come out and join us if you can. Any final thoughts on the NAR settlement lawsuit before we switch gears and talk a little bit about your business?
Not till all the guidelines come out. There's a lot that's going to be done between now and that point, so I wouldn't stress about it. Just keep doing your thing until these guidelines come out. Then we can address some of those and how to overcome many of the issues. There really is a lot of solutions out there. You just don't know them yet.
I love it. And get a good chance to get involved. If you haven't been involved in the local board, or if you're not coming to the GRI or to SARIA or to WCR is another one that we have a lot of respect for. Take this opportunity. So, I'm going to get a little more involved. I'm going to connect with my colleagues. I'm going to work on this together. I'm not just going to sit at home and be fearful. I'm going to get in contact with people and start communicating, and you'll find solutions and you can work through it together. We're happy to help. We're here to help you. If you need our help, and we're of course available to you. So Victor, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your business. So this podcast, our goal is to be the podcast of choice for learning-based entrepreneurs committed to adding value to people's lives. Since I've known you to be learning-based. I've known you to be a person that learning-based, I always say, is the opposite of ignorance-based. Ignorance-based are sayings like, I am who I am, take me or leave me, been there, done that, those sorts of sayings. And it's not like you haven't ever said those before. Maybe you have, but I've noticed you to be a person that can adapt to challenges, that can succeed and overcome adversity, which are learning-based elements. And I think you have to be a successful entrepreneur. And so that's the first thing that we're going to discuss. And then the other side is, why? Like why be an entrepreneur? It may be easier to work for a law firm or do something else and not have to take the risk of being an entrepreneur. And so tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. How did it start? Why did you decide to get into it? And what are some of those initial challenges that you had to overcome to become an entrepreneur?
Sure. Necessity, I think, is the most important word. Necessity.
I like that.
I don't have any parents. I have not had a parent since I was 21. My dad died right when I was about to turn 21. So it's been all on me since then. And I'm 30 years older now. So I don't mind. I don't care. But no, necessity. If the market's good, the market's bad, doesn't matter. I got to provide. I've got daughters that I have to provide for. Thankfully, 2 of them have already grown up and just got 1 more to go. But here's the thing. If tomorrow I can't work, it's on me. I think I chose real estate because whether I'm on a chair or I'm in my vehicle, I can buy properties. And I could be a lawyer, but I got to be honest, most lawyers I know are pretty unhappy. They have to kill themselves and have huge overhead. I told this to Carl beforehand. Whether the market's good or bad, I live simple. I don't have a big fat house. I don't have a car payment. I barely have a mortgage. My vice is traveling and playing golf and beating this guy at golf. I mean, that's it. Keep it simple. There are some who may be watching this who know, I deserve this, I deserve that. Okay, if that's what you believe, go for it. But when the market's bad, and it has been for the last year or so, can you survive during these lean times? And a lot of people can't. They struggle mightily. They don't realize that you're in control of your life. So back to entrepreneurship, I think for me, it's been a sense of necessity. I could go get a job. I could put my future in someone else's hands and make them rich, or I could do it for myself. I chose to do it for myself. Right. I don't think I ever shared this story. I was in my last semester of college. I ended up getting a job at a food service company here in town. Okay. And I kind of knew the GM, and he got me set up. And I'm going to school at night. I'm finishing my last 2 classes. Yeah. I'm doing whatever they tell me. But honestly, they had no really good managerial skills or structure. I'm like, what do you guys need me to do? I'll do it. Right. We got to have somebody in Dallas. Great. Send me. I'll go. Yeah. Okay. We need you to read this manual. Okay. Right. I'll read it. And so forth and so forth. And not even a month later, they're like, we really don't need your position at all. And we got to let you go. And I said, did I do anything wrong? Could I have done anything different? Like, no, we just don't need your position, to be honest with you. And I swore at that moment I would never, ever, ever let anybody control my future. So as soon as I became a lawyer day 1, I put my own shingle out and have been figuring it out. And I've made my share of mistakes, I'm sure, like you have. It doesn't matter. You learn from it. It's only a mistake if you don't learn from it.
That's good.
And so I've made more mistakes than most, but I don't let that define me. Overcoming those mistakes. In real estate, it's a good example. Everybody's afraid of doing one deal. Okay, then don't do it by yourself. Get a partner. I will put up the money. I will help you, put the deal together. I will help you dispose of it. You have no risk. And I can tell that to 100 people, and maybe 3 or 4 will ever take me up on it. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing. Either you have that drive in you and you're not relying on other people to wipe your butt, and you need to do this, or you don't. You don't. Yeah, you got to have that passion. I don't know how to explain it. You either develop it, or you just might as well just go to JOB and figure it out otherwise.
Well, I love what you mentioned about entitlement. If you have this mindset of entitlement, like I deserve this and I want this and I want that, it really holds you back at times. And, you've seen that. And one of my greatest, I respect, one of the things I respect the most about you is that you don't have that sense of entitlement. You say, hey, everything, and you're very modest in the way that you approach things, and you just don't see the reason to put on this facade at times. I think in real estate, a lot of us get caught up in that. I need to have that car. I need to have, that suit. There's something to be said about professionalism and being presentable and being, fashionable to a certain degree. That helps you. That adds value to people. I always tell people, one of the simple ways to add value to a client and a person is to dress up for them, because it shows that you respect them. They're buying a home. The least you can do is put on a jacket or dress up for them a little bit. It adds value to that person, makes them feel special, But, I've appreciated the fact that you've had this, anti-entitlement approach to your coaching and to your business. And I love that. The challenges with your business, tell me, what was probably one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, early on in your business? Did you ever have, certainly at one point, Victor Maas, wasn't, having the success that he's having to this day. Tell us one of your biggest learning moments where, you got shut down, or you didn't think maybe there was a way forward, but you found a way to persevere. Yeah. Was there any moments like that?
Yeah. In fact, I can tell you it was between 2007 and 2009.
Okay.
Those 2 years were very difficult in the
recession.
That's right. That was huge for me because my mindset was buy low, fix it up, and resell it for a profit.
Right.
Buy low, fix it up, sell it for profit. Things weren't selling.
They weren't selling at all.
But
12 months of inventory.
Right. Yeah. And so in my silly mind, like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Doesn't matter what I want. It's what the market is needing of me. And so what I've discovered soon thereafter was wholesaling. And not just wholesaling, but acquiring the property, cleaning it all out, and literally serving it to an investor on a silver platter. Like, here you go. Just bring me a check for, whatever a dollar amount is. And if we agree, there you go. Now, it does help that I'm a lawyer. It does help that I can close the deal today. Those things are helpful. But the big change, and I read this book called Acres of Diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
Acres of Diamonds is one of my favorite books. It's a very short, small book. Someone will read it to you on YouTube if you don't want to read it. Anywho, the guy mentioned we all have a responsibility as entrepreneurs to give the community what they're asking.
Right.
For example, do you think we need another Mexican restaurant in San Antonio? No.
Yes.
No. Do we need a Lambo, dealership here? No, we do not. We do not. No. What we need to do is make people's their lives easier, and save them time.
Right.
And once you realize, give people what they want, and you get paid handsomely, that sold me. And I've seen it time and time again for the last 15 years. I've had a good run, a great run, in fact. And I'm always getting deals because I help and add value to our students, to our community. It's a really interesting thing. I don't think I've ever told you this. When I first got into being a lawyer, everybody would recognize my last name because of my adoptive father.
Yeah, Roy.
For 10 plus years, no one ever brings him up.
Yeah.
I can be out and about and people are like, hey, you helped me with this. Hey, you sold me this property and my God, I still live in it and you did such a great job. I get this all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm out with friends, I'll have people come and buy me a drink. Like, wow, I must have contributed in a positive way to my fellow citizens.
You have.
And that's the part that I really enjoy.
You have. I mean, you've added tremendous value to the community. I'll never forget, this was probably about 8 or 9, 10 years ago, when you were doing the expos then.
Yeah.
And you had Red McCones speaking.
Yeah, 2015. I remember
2015. It was 2015.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It was one of his last presentations, really, before he passed. But it was incredible, and he added so much value to me. Just seeing him and being able to hear him present that in a local, smaller, more intimate crowd. And so you've been doing that your whole career, and I love that. It's adding value, but. If I could bring up one situation that happened recently, so you bought a flip home that I remember, and you bought it in a great area, and you did your numbers on it, and it seemed like it was going to work out. You put it out there, and it sat there, right?
Yep.
And then you lower the price, and it sat there some more.
Yep.
Right? And so now you're thinking, wait a minute, did I do something wrong?
Nope. I reached, and I know it, and I acknowledge it. And I still made a profit from it, but not what I thought I was going to make on it. Okay. But again, I say, I usually don't buy more than homes that are worth $300,000. This one was over $400,000, and the driveway was at a steep incline. Yeah. But I bought it so cheaply, and I still made a profit. Funny story about that. I helped the lady heir get money for a property. She never put a dime into it, and I took that problem away from her. So I believe you can't win every one of them, but if I win, my numbers are pretty damn good. If I win 49 out of 50, I'll live. You know what I'm saying? I do it in my sleep now. This is how I buy houses. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not to be silly or full of myself or conceited. It's just you've done hundreds and hundreds of these. You can do it with your eyes closed, and you help people on the seller side. You help people on the buyer side, and it creates a great opportunity for everybody.
One of my favorite things about your approach, too, is you know how to say no. And, one of my favorite books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Individuals by Stephen Covey, I believe it was the 4th habit, where what essentially boils down is first things first is the title of the chapter, but it's the ability to say no. And, Warren Buffett, who's one of my favorite people to watch, one of the times a reporter asked him, hey, how did you give us the one thing that made you successful? And he said, I said no 99 times before I said yes once. And one thing I've noticed about you is, as I've presented opportunities to you over the years and things that I've looked at and said, man, this is gold mine for somebody. As I've started to explain it, sometimes no more than 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences in, it's like, I'm out. And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't even finish telling you about the opportunity. And you're like, no, I'm out. And so it's a little frustrating for me at times. It's, for me at times, I'm trying to sell this property or trying to help the client get it sold. But you're like, no. And so explain to our viewers, like, how do you get to that point to where you can say no quickly and efficiently, but also know that you're not saying no to a bigger opportunity. Right. And also, have that discipline to not feel like you're disappointing people and all these things that come up with the word no. Right. Because it's much harder to say than yes.
You can be cruel about your no, or you can just be matter of fact, logical, and respectful about it. I think I'm more of that. Now, because we know each other, I can be a little bit more blunt with you.
Sure.
Earlier today at my lunch and learn, I'm leaving the room. I've got to go wash up. And this gentleman pulls me aside. He's like, hey, I really need to talk to you about this potential deal. I said, tell you what, keep me company.
Yep.
And from here to the bathroom door, I don't know, a minute walk or something like that. By the time I got to the bathroom door, no.
Really?
Yeah.
That quick, huh?
Yes. Because to me, real estate from the investor side is very, very simple.
Yeah.
You ask the first question, what do you think it's worth fixed up conservatively?
Right.
And he said, blah, blah, blah. No, just give me a number. He said 220. I said, terrific. What do they want for the property? And what do you think the rehab is going to be? And he said, the rehab about 60. Great. What do they want for the property? 190. Nope. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. If they want 190 plus 60 on top of that, we're at 250. But he just told me the home is worth 220.
220, yeah.
So why would I even entertain that?
Yeah. Did he kind of say, well, hold on a minute?
He tried to explain it, and maybe one person in a million will want this. I'm like, I don't work that way. I want to be able to sell my homes to what I call the Target and Walmart population.
Right.
Why? Because that's what San Antonio is. If I lived in, let's say, West Austin, well, I'm going to go Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom type kind of buyer clientele.
Right.
But because the majority of the properties, what's the median price in San Antonio these days?
It's just under 3. It's like 290.
Exactly.
285.
So focus on what people want, not what I want. So now we get to the numbers. I buy homes like this, as I mentioned. He said it's worth 220.
Right.
Times 70%. That's my maximum offer minus the rehab. I got to be way lower than that.
Yeah.
And when I tried to explain it to him, I said, why do you think they're asking for so much money?
Right.
He says, well, they're going to get foreclosed and they need the money.
Well,
and you have to understand, I can help somebody.
Right.
The folks watching this can help somebody.
Right.
But it has to be a win-win.
Has to be a win.
Right. And to Warren Buffett, I'll say no probably 9 out of 10 times. Okay. I'm not on 99, but I'm more like 9 out of 10 times. Yeah.
You're a little bit better than Warren Buffett. Okay. What advice would you give, Victor, to, let's say, an aspiring entrepreneur? Let's say somebody that says, hey, you know what, I'm ready to get in business for myself. And maybe I'm considering real estate. Maybe I'm considering investment. Maybe I'm considering starting my own, law firm.
Right.
The things that in your wheelhouse. Like, what advice would you give to that person? And what would the Victor Maas now say to the 24-year-old Victor Maas that was starting to get, started in becoming an entrepreneur?
Sure. This will not be very popular.
Okay.
I have this answer.
Don't do it? No.
Actually, you know what? To a certain point, yes.
Okay.
If you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, don't do it. And here's why. If you're not in control of your mental faculty, you will not succeed at this business. What do I mean by that? Well, it involves a lot of self-discipline. Of all the characteristics I've seen with folks in business, whether it's real estate or any others, their lack of self-discipline ruins them. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example. I've got to drive this car because, I've only been in business 6 months and I've got to look my best. Or I've got to have $1 million house because, I've got to impress people that really don't matter. Now, you've been to my home many times.
Yeah.
I'm doing some renovations to it right now as we speak.
Yeah.
It's a simple little cottage home, and it's just me. I'm a single person. That works perfectly for me. And I've had, people I've dated like, oh, you should buy this fancy house here, fancy house there. I'm like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. To have that self-discipline in all facets of your life, working out, your home, your business, your spending habits. And most people lack that self-control. There's a book out there I would highly, best book I've ever read in my life, The Richest Man in Babylon. And it starts with being self-disciplined, sacrificing. Wait until you've earned it. And a lot of people can't. I deserve this. I deserve that. You only deserve health, freedom. Everything else you got to earn. And a lot of people don't like to earn.
So when is it? So most people, I would assume, yes, you're not quite ready for this. You need to gain some discipline. You need to gain some life experience to where you can overcome the adversity that's going to come with it. When is a person ready? Like, when would you say, you know what, you've got the perfect setup and you're ready to become an entrepreneur? When would you give that advice to somebody?
When you don't need the money for maybe 6 months, that would be a good time.
Okay.
Because now the pressure of having to provide for your family or yourself, it's not like beating you up. Because I've seen some investors, some entrepreneurs make some bad life choices because the pressures of life are kicking their butt. And they all think they're going to be successful. They all think they're going to be successful. I had some clients come in last week. This is a good story to your point. They come in, and there's 4 of them, and they met at some real estate investor function, not mine.
Yeah.
But they come in, and 4 people from different parts of our community who've never met before. They're like, okay, how many LLCs do we need to get started? What about this? What about this? 100 questions.
Yeah.
When I then said, wait a minute, why don't you learn how to crawl first? Why don't you learn how to walk then? Why don't you learn how to run then? My buddy, he's into day trading. And he's trying to put me onto this. And he said, wait a minute, I don't want you to go spend money tomorrow.
Right.
Instead, there's this program that you can practice this ability for the next 6 months or a year.
Okay.
So that way you can see how successful you would be.
Right.
You can now read this and read that. There's very little to no risk.
Okay.
And I was like, what a great novel concept.
Brilliant. Yeah,
because how many brokers do you know in the investment, stocks and bonds? No, give us your money now.
Of course.
Let us spend it for you.
And
if you lose money
that's your
or
fault.
make money, we really don't care because we're getting our fees every time we buy and sell for you.
Right.
So I thought, what a novel concept. So to those entrepreneurs out there, stop trying to be a big dog overnight. You're not. I didn't start teaching real estate investing till I'd been doing it for 10 years.
That's right.
Whereas I've seen so many clowns out there after 2 or 3 deals, they think they're experts. I would be embarrassed to be in their shoes trying to be experts after 2 or 3 deals. I've made more mistakes in my first 10 years than I care to admit, but they weren't like so horrible that I couldn't do it again and do it again.
That's good. And that 6 months of runway, is really important because I see it happen in real estate a lot. People, they pay for the license, they quit their job. And they put all the pressure on maybe a spouse or a family member. And within 2 to 3 months, they're just burnt out and just frustrated and stressed. And, to a certain degree, I want to encourage people. And if you're in that place now, maybe listening to this podcast or listening to this show, don't be encouraged or discouraged, rather. Don't be discouraged. There's a lot to be said for never giving up and pushing forward and being that, it's going to work out. Stay positive, but to Victor's point, it's like what I tell people, and this is a big part of my interviewing process is, do you have a good support system in place? Do you have some runway so you're not freaking out about your bills in a few months? Because it may take you 3 months to 6 months before you get your first paycheck, before you get your first, actual return,
right.
and that's really hard for a lot of people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing why most agents and most investors fail. Would you agree? I mean, it's just you run out of runway.
You do. It's funny. I met somebody recently, and they're in their late 20s. They want to get into real estate and whatever. And I said, well, tell me about your monthly budget. Like, monthly what? And I'm like, what do you pay for a car, an apartment, gas, entertainment, insurance, this and that? And they couldn't put it down to paper. And they finally started thinking about it. And what do you think their biggest expense is?
I mean, probably their housing or
their
car?
luxury apartment at the Rim or some fancy part of town.
Paying $3,000 a month in rent.
Right. They're paying, $1,500 to $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
I pay less than that for my mortgage
Oh, yeah.
with tax and insurance.
Oh, yeah.
My utility bill is nothing because it's a one-story little home. And when I explain to them, get rid of your expenses as much as possible if you're going to get into being an entrepreneur. That way the pressure's not on you. You don't need a brand new car with car payments. You don't need a big fat house out in the Dominion. If you want to really do this, do it. But get rid of your expenses as much as possible. I don't, have Gucci or Chanel bags all over me. There's an inside joke with that. And I encourage you to live simple until you've earned it. Yeah. Seriously, live simple until you've earned it. And go for a jog, go for a walk. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. You don't need fancy gym memberships like I have. That might be one of my big expense.
That's well said. Yeah, but then that's personal care.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best investments you can make on yourself. And he jokes with me about the Gucci. I do have some Gucci wear that I've enjoyed. But it's all perspective in terms of where you're at in your journey.
Yes.
And so Victor, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, one last plug for Thursday at Sabor. If you guys want to join us, Victor will be there too. And so if you have another question or have another thought that you'd like to bring up, come join us at Sabor. We're going to be doing more of these. And Victor, how can a person, let's say they want to get involved in your coaching program, or maybe they want to attend one of your events, how can one of our viewers or one of our listeners get connected with you?
Absolutely. San Antonio Real Estate Investors Association, or SAREIA, SAREIA.com. Our office number is 210-468-1831. You can also find me at maaslawfirm.com, MAAS lawfirm.com. There's a lot of forms and checklists for those in real estate, for owner financing, wraparounds, subject to transactions, transfer on death deeds, wills. We also do LLC formations. So anything real estate, let us help you.
Well said, my friend. Well said, my friend. And that's one of the best things about your site is all the free stuff that you get from it. So check it out. Come join us for one of his luncheons. And thank you all so much for joining us today. And we're excited to see you on the next episode of the AE American Entrepreneur Podcast. Thanks again. Thank you, Saulo, for doing this for us today. All right.